forced onto it twice by Fnatic Academy.
So Paris Saint-Germain, they seem pretty happy with having that first pick priority. In the past, they have, in Game 1, they banned out the Zyra. In Game 2, in Game 1, they banned out the Lulu. In Game 2, they banned out the Tahm Kench. Now in Game 3, they're shifting things up by banning away the Echo.
They did ban this out in second rotation last time, as we got towards those mid lane picks, so deciding now to ban it out in the first rotation. Fnatic Academy have gone towards that Camille as their last ban on a lot of occasions. They've had the Malzahar ban once as well. So it's going to be Zyra actually taking off the card. So we do still have that Nautilus first pick, which is what we've seen Paris Saint-Germain pick up the last 2 times, and I think now is where you make a statement of intent. With the series at 1-1, it becomes a best of 3 between these 2 teams. Do you make a statement of intent and move away from the Nautilus, or do you rely once again on that tanky top lane powerhouse?
I think you move away from the Nautilus. I think that it definitely is a strong pick, but we have seen that there are answers to it. And
ooh, that is blind.
We wanted to see a power pick in the top lane. The thing about Rumble is he's actually a pretty safe top laner overall. He doesn't really have bad matchups. And by blind picking it, it's also deterring kickers away from champions like the Akali, who do struggle in the early laning phase, against champions like the Rumble. Fnatic Academy can go for the Nautilus themselves, but it takes a little while to scale up.
Camille, lock in straight away by Kicker, so he's going for that carry matchup, and as much as Rumble is relatively safe in the 1v1, we know Fnatic Academy do not play a 1v1 top lane, they play a 1v2 top lane, with Amazing spending a lot of time there. It looks like he's going to go for the Graves here, so power picks early on, and a bit of a more interesting draft here, Vedius.
You got baited, it's always the hovers, you never talk about the hovers. One of the basic rules of casting.
Ezreal another power pick here for Fnatic Academy.
I think that the Ezreal takeaway makes a lot of sense. And now if you're Paris Saint-Germain, Kira actually shifting back to a jungler that he's had a lot of success on in the past. This is what he used to be known for. He used to play a lot of it when he played for Dignitas. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Malzahar, a champion we completely missed, has been left open, did manage to make his way through the draft, still considered one of the top tier supports.
Wasn't picked in the last draft though, even like their misfortune of course picked into the Zyra there. So here it's going to be the Malzahar, but Clyde will very happily fall back onto that Tahm Kench, and Mao's into Ezreal isn't that easy, Mao's into Camille isn't that easy, Mao's into Tahm Kench especially isn't that easy. So I'd like to see Paris Saint-Germain get another pick opportunity out of the rest of this team, because otherwise every time Mao's ults someone it's very easy to devour for this Tahm Kench.
But it's mainly a deterrent for the Camille, because every time the Camille dives in, you don't have immediate peel to buy time while she ends up getting stuck in her ultimate. So yes, the Tahm Kench mitigates a lot of the pick potential, but Malzahar still has a lot of the peeling power that he's going to need when that Camille is diving onto the backline. So now that the AD carries haven't been picked for Paris Saint-Germain, again, an AD carry focus band coming out from Fnatic Academy, Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, they're looking to target away some of the jungle bans. Looking at, Kha'Zix's taken away, Elise highly probable to be taken off the board as well, especially if you want to try and snowball this Camille up in the top lane.
Graves is still on the cards as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps that's banned out. There's so many possibilities. It's going to be Syndra, so it gives perhaps Blanc a slightly easier matchup. And actually, we haven't seen Blanc playing his traditional mid laners thus far. He's played Vladimir, obviously in the first game played that Orianna as well, but he's very well known for his Azir play, which is something I thought we'd see a little bit more. And Talia, those sort of more zone control mages. I think Paris Saint-Germain might need someone just to have a little bit more impact.
I mean, he has played Ori and Vlad, which are pretty good zone control mages.
It's true. It's just not his conventional zone control mages. Never played Ori, never played Vlad in the Challenger Series up until this set of games.
That's fair, that's fair. Now,
holy moly, that's a Tristana lock-in for Pilot.
All right, so, excuse me, the Elise pick came out as we were talking about earlier on. To round things out for Fnatic Academy, I think a Vladimir would be pretty fine here. Round things out with their team composition. You have a lot of early power already with the Elise. You have the scaling with the Ezreal, and if you have the Vladimir in there too, it scales just as nicely. Perhaps you want a little bit more utility in your composition though, so the Victor also makes sense.
So Tristana has been picked 3 times this in Season 7 across all of competitive play. She has a 66% win rate, 2-1. I'm just very shocked by this pick in all honesty. I mean, we saw Akali, which has only been picked 3 times and now has a 25% win rate after winning that one game. Tristana here looking to up that win rate to 75%.
Now, I actually had a really interesting chat with Sven about Tristana. That's the champion's name that I'm looking for. And one of the reasons as to why she's not seen very often is because, sure, she scales really well. She doesn't have that very many good matchups, so she's actually very easy to abuse during the laning phase. And on top of that, when you compare her to a lot of other AD carries at around the 2-3 item spike, a lot of AD carries tend to have a lot more value than she does. Now, you cannot underestimate her late game teamfighting power, given her ridiculous range and the fact that she just scales so incredibly well, but she often does have a rough laning phase, and against an Ezreal, she will struggle a little bit in terms of the 1v1. And when you think about the mid-game spike, Fnatic Academy look to have a much stronger one as well. And I think that when you also consider there's an Elise and a Camille, sure, you have a lot of disengage. The Tristana ultimate's going to be great for preventing the Camille getting on top of you because you could knock her out of her own ultimate. Yeah. But I think that Paris Saint-Germain, they're just going to take quite a while to ramp up, which is one of the big risks that they are running against what looks to be a very early dominant Fnatic.
Well, we are going to get on to the Rift once again for Game 3 of this series between Paris Saint-Germain and Fnatic Academy. Make sure you tweet at us. It's at LOL Esports. If you think Paris Saint-Germain will take the third game and go 2-1 up, it's hashtag PSG win. And if you think Fnatic Academy are going to follow their sister team up into the LCS, it's hashtag FNA win. Compositionally, late game for PSG, mid game for Fnatic Academy. PSG are playing one of these lineups that I tend to dislike just on a purely draft phase because I struggle to see where their engage is. I struggle to see where their ability to force a fight comes from.
That's fair. They're very much reliant on flanks and using the Rumble ultimate as a zoning tool. It will be difficult, but at the same time, where is...
Ooh, Kyrie! That's not where you want to be. He's going to have to try and flash this wall, but Clyde's on the other side. Exhaust has been used, and Kyrie is first blood. Fnatic Academy use the flanks that PSG want later in the game to take down first blood.
That kind of sucks for Kyrie. He ends up just walking into the river and dying. He wanted to just get a bit of vision down. He was not expecting the 5-man collapse to come out from Fnatic Academy. The fascinating thing was Fnatic Academy actually moved through the mid lane into the brush. They saw Kyrie as he went into that brush to set up the vision. And then they ended up getting collapse upon him. Like,
I love the pincer movement, though, because if Cly and Mr. Rollers aren't coming down from that top side, Kyrie just goes around. Like, he just walks back in towards where his blue buff is, and he's fine. But because they pincer him, he's got nowhere to go, and it means Amazing now has a Dark Seal to start off on an Elise jungle, which is so strong in the early game.
This was a very well thought out plan from Fnatic Academy. You can see that they had done their research and they successfully were able to get themselves first blood onto a jungler. Tends to start in a very similar manner. So I like the play from Fnatic. Good first blood. Let's see what else they can do with it now, because we talked about how Elise very much built towards the early game. She's a champion that Amazing was well known for in the past. He's had a lot of success with the champion. And I think that if he's going to look to snowball any lane, it has to be the top half of the map. We talked about it. That top lane for Fnatic, they often don't play 1v1. It's usually a 1v2, and with the pathing that Amazing is taking, it really does look like that he's going for that early gank.
Doing what Kyrie did in the first game, going for this earlier gank, not level 2, level 3, of course, because the extra experience from that kill, and he's looking, because White Knight is pushed all the way up in this lane. Here comes Amazing, spotted on a ward, immediately pinged. What can White Knight do? Can he get away? Flash straight away. The cocoon is there. Here comes the wall jump. Here comes the leap in, and here comes the kill for Kikis.
Very easy kill for Kikis. Surprised that White Knight didn't actually spot Amazing as he was making his way into the river. Doesn't respect the possibility of an early gank coming out from Amazing. Utilizes the fact that Rumble is just naturally going to be pushing all the time early on. And it's just going exactly as we predicted, Medic. Early ganks top from Amazing. Getting the snowball for Kikis. Carry versus carry. Difficult to argue that White Knight is the better carry when it is a 1 versus 2.
Now, Kyrie did steal away a blue buff here, so it's a little bit of an advantage taken for him in terms of experience. However, Amazing can come down, clear this bottom side, then go back up towards top. I really want to keep a track on how many times he ganks that top lane. White Knight no longer has flash. Kikis can probably just win the lane by himself now if he backs and starts to get himself spiking up on items. The argument that he has now in his head is, do I go back and get Phage? Do I go back and get Tiamat? Or do I go back and get Sheen? I'm expecting Sheen for the pure damage potential, pure fight potential, but Tiamat gives him a little bit more push potential, and Phage makes him just that slightly more tanky into the White Knight matchup.
I think that he might, it depends what he wants, right? If he wants more dueling power, then he'll prioritize getting the early Trinity Force. If he's more focused on getting wave clear, then it'll be more towards the TNO, right? So it very much depends on what his goals for the lane are. He has a lot of options. He's sitting on a healthy amount of gold right now, so the choices are his.
Probably wants to wait for that 1,400 mark or so.
I mean, exactly what he's sitting on right now.
Yeah, he's sitting on 990 gold at the moment.
Oh, that's his total. I'm stupid, right?
That's okay, no problem. The only reason, like, Camille is one of my pet champions. I wrote an article about her when she was in the meta, and she is still very strong. See her banned out almost every game in LCK at the moment. Just so powerful when she gets ahead, and amazing. Gank number 2, 4 minutes in. So we've had a 3-minute gank, we've got a 4.5-minute gank.
But this time, Kira, he's reading the play. Notice that the minion wave is still very far pushed up, and it will result in PSG being able to get their flash from Amazing.
Cocoon doesn't connect, the wall jump will come in. There's the stun. White Knight tries to scrap shield his way away, turns the flame spitter out as well, and survives. Amazing missing the Cocoon with the death knell for the gank.
Yeah, I think Amazing was a little bit rash there with his use of the Cocoon. There was no need to just throw it out blindly, especially when there was no flash available for White Knight. He could have waited a little bit longer in order to secure it. And the fact that White Knight gets away from another gank is good for him, because he can't afford to be falling far behind, especially when he already lost his teleport. It would have really hurt his laning phase. But Kikis is still pretty comfortable. He's sitting on a healthy amount of gold. He has the level advantage. He still has his teleport available as well. And so for the time being, top half of the map going well for Fnatic, but the bottom half going pretty good for PSG. They have this constant push with the Malzahar and the Tristana. And even if Ezreal can trade pretty well into the Trist, fortunately it's not a 1v1 lane, it's a 2v2, and the Malz is making things difficult for Cly to really get any leeway in this lane.
Rale's doing a good job of farming underneath that turret though. It's pretty even in the lane, even though they get continually pushed back. And Rale's actually hasn't been an AD carry that's really shown up a huge amount in Challenger Series. He tends to be quite quiet, tends to just do what he needs to do for his team. He's actually got the lowest damage stats of any AD carry across the last couple of weeks when Amazing's been in the roster. However, still pretty influential when he needs to be. I just want to see him play perhaps more like Pilot did in Game 1 on this Ezreal. He needs to have just a bit more of an impact when we get later on into the game.
I'm looking. First dragon of the game will be the Ocean. Kira actually hanging around the top half of the map, perhaps looking to get something back for his top laner. If we are going to see, something that you asked earlier on is like when do these teams turn on, right? Like when do they look to try and force fights? Where does the composition almost become unstoppable? And for Fnatic Academy, it's very much again that 1-4 that they had in Game 1 with the Akali, and you're very much relying on the 2-item spike for kicker. So usually it's the Trinity Force into the Ravenous Hydra, or Titanic Hydra. I mean, it depends on how you follow up with the itemization. Whereas for PSG, they very much, once again, have a great sieging comp that's very good in 5v5 fights. So they're going back to what they had worked for them in Game 1, but they have few answers, once again, for kickers. And this seems to be a recurring theme. Rarely are PSG looking to go for that hard split push style of play, and instead they're always more interested in grouping up, trying to force fights. And I think Fnatic have identified this. And by splitting PSG up, they've realized that PSG don't really have that many answers for it. They don't really know how to deal with a team that's constantly forcing them to separate and play around the entire map rather than just group up and roll down a lane.
It feels very much more like PSG's on a clock this game as well. In the last couple of games, they've had great scaling into the late game and have been able to match their opponents in later game fights. Here, Tristana scales very well, and Orianna still has impact later on, especially when you get towards that 4 or 5 items point. But against an Ezreal, against a Victor, against a Camille who's just going to continuously scale up until that 6-item just dominating, pushing force. I think PSG, if they miss their window, if they miss the opportunity to utilize this rumble, will very much struggle after the 35-40 minute mark.
Well, if you're PSG, what you really want to do is try and force something around the 20-minute mark, right? Like 20, 25 minute, have an item or two underneath your belt. The Dragon is a great place to try and force a fight. Baron as well. We noticed that Amazing was up top side for the 3rd time within 8 minutes. But this time he did get spotted out by White Knight, didn't quite move through the bush at the allocated time, and now Fnatic are looking to move around the map a little bit more. EUCS wants to maybe set up their own mids. Good vision control around the Dragon for Fnatic. And we have to remember...
I think what we have to remember, while you probably take a drink of water, is how much pressure this is putting onto White Knight, because he's come onto this team, he's been seen as the savior of PSG. You know, he wasn't playing, they'd won one game. He's playing now, they've won 6 in a row, although they just lost the last one. How much pressure is on him now to try and continue to carry this team, especially now he's playing someone who's a lot more impactful in team fights, is much more impetus put on how he places that ultimate and how he's able to change the flow of a team fight.
I don't feel like we have to put all the pressure on White Knight. I don't think he necessarily feels it himself. I think that as an individual, he just does his job and he does it well, and that results in PSG having a little bit more control overall around the map. The big thing for PSG is the success of their bottom lane. I feel like how well Pilot does really does dictate the success of their team. As we see now, Blanc, 1v2.
Shock Wave used, Repel comes out, the Cocoon's already down, and Blanc will just use the Ghost and the ult to get himself out. So, not a successful gank in mid, but backtracking down to the bottom lane. Bear in mind that while Amazing has been investing all of his time into ganking top and trying to snowball EUCS, Pilot and Sprout have been hitting onto this tower non-stop. Yep. Remember that Tristana is just naturally very good at sieging onto objectives. And the fact that she's been freely allowed to just get these bombs down repeatedly onto these structures is going to result in the first tower going over to PSG. That means that the laning phase will not be extended. PSG, they can move their bottom lane up to top. They can move their bottom lane to mids. They can start to move EUCS away from this 1v1 and force him into 2v1s, 3v1s, where he's not going to have the same sort of dominance that he's had so far in the laning phase. It's the way we actually saw Schalke deal with EUCS when he was on the Camille, because Schalke picked the Swain into it, which is a great matchup in the long lane matchup. And secondly, they took an early turret and then said, okay, we're gonna move Smithy J into another lane. And EUCS followed, tried to deal with it, but couldn't deal with the Swain in such a long lane matchup. So PSG here, if they can get White Knight out of that 1v1 matchup or 2v1 matchup with Amazing continually ganking, perhaps they can help White Knight be able just to get towards those 20-minute item spikes.
So, no medic. The game is pretty slow. We've had a few slow games. So as casters, it's important for us to be entertaining. But not only to be entertaining, but to also educate the viewers. Now, some people at home may not realize this, but you're an actual qualified medic. Is that not correct?
Doctor, technically.
Doctor, yes. You are in fact a qualified doctor. You have a degree. You even had a year of training in medical school. That's wonderful. Now, some people might doubt that.
I'm going to interrupt you there for a second. I didn't have a year of training in medical school because Kyrie's actually getting ganked here. Should be able to get away as he tunnels his way away. I didn't have a year of training in medical school. I did 5 years of training in medical school. And then I worked as a doctor for a year.
My apologies.
Clyde caught out with the Malefic Vision, with the Netherglass, so he's going to try and jump away, but even with Amazing coming in, actually Kyrie flashes away, Pilot jumps in, he's so aggressive, tries to get the kill, doesn't land it, and he'll go down. Mr. Roller's there to help Amazing pick up the 3rd kill of the game.
Now what could have been a great return back into the game for PSG ends in disaster. Pilot a little bit too overzealous. He really could have used the medic himself right there, as he ends up giving away a kill over to Fnatic Academy. They are now strong enough to... Well, interesting. I thought that they would either go for the Dragon or maybe even set up for that tower down bottom lane. They decide not to commit to that. And instead, will just walk away with the kill.
It's a song as old as time for Pilot, though. Over-aggression costing him dearly. He was so close to taking down Clyde. Can't have been more than single-digit health between him and that kill, but you don't get it. You can't jump out again with that rocket leap. And that is exactly the downfall of him. Let's see how this fight started off.
Now, Kira, he was trapped in the pit trying to get some vision down. Cly going for this flanking maneuver, which was the original mistake. And then as you get this 3-man collapse coming out from the Fnatic lineup, you can see that Tristana this early in the game doesn't have that huge amount of damage. Pilot just dives in thinking he can get the kill and jump back out. But then the heal comes out from Niski, keeping Cly safe enough. But even with the ulti from Pilot, I don't actually think that would have been enough damage anyway. I think that the heal was just for additional safety, and I think that Pilot should have just backed away, because think about it. If Pilot doesn't die, they now have an advantage in the bottom lane, they have a numbers advantage. You can then start to push, and you can very likely take down that tier 1 tower on the bottom. Now all of a sudden, you've opened up the map, you can go back to base with a fair amount of gold, you can move then up to the top lane immediately, and so much more of the map could have been controlled if PSG, if Pilot even had just restrained himself a little bit.
A few minutes ago, it felt very even. Now, a gold lead extends for Fnatic Academy, about 1,000, which is enough for them. They are still pressured for that first tower down towards the bottom side of the map, and you can see vision control gained by PSG as well down towards there. They know where they want to play around this Drake, around that turret, try and get themselves that little bit of bonus gold, the treasure at the end of the chip damage mountain.
The chip damage mountain, yeah.
I'm sticking with it, man.
I'm sticking with it, fair enough. Now Kick is trading once again onto White Knight. I like the trading pattern from White Knight. He moves back, he reads the engage from Kikis, and he just waits for the stun to land, and then he uses his slows from the Electro Harpoons to be able to chase down onto Kikis.
There's always a risk with that. If you don't use it properly, the adaptive defensive shield will just eat up all the damage from the Flame Spitter.
Yep.
So using the Electro Harpoons actually helps you get through the shield and gets all your Flame Spitter damage down. Strong play by White Knight, as you say. Actually looks like Kyrie's going to start up the Drake here. They know they've got vision control. Only one ward around here. I didn't think it spotted Kyrie, as we're going to see Niski flank across as well. Blank might be caught out as Clyde tries to get in with a tongue lash. There's a shockwave on the back, and here comes the damage out. Kyrie in the front line is going to get taken low. The TP coming in as well. It's White Knight. He's there, but he doesn't want to be there. Kick is taken off down towards the side. Now is a 4v4. PSG looking for the re-engage. Rala's trying to jump away across the wall. Blank there. Damage down. Clyde eating up the flames from the Flame Spitter. White Knight will back away. Actually aggro's the Dragon, and Pilot takes fiery shot to the face.
Now it ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. PSG should be able to get themselves a tier 1 tower in the bottom lane, but look at the movement from Fnatic. They realize that this tower is guaranteed to go down, so let's try and push mid. Let's try and trade structures so that at the very least the gold is not swinging in the favor of PSG, and I love this movement from Fnatic. Again, reading the map, understanding exactly what they need to do to try and make sure that the game remains even.
They'll actually keep themselves ahead with this. It put them about 1,000 gold ahead overall. So even though we saw a 1-for-1 trade and we saw the towers traded as well, actually goes in favor of Fnatic Academy.
So you can see that the fight actually starts from PSG because they're setting up for the Baron, and they feel that with the TP and with the vision control they have around the river, they can easily force this objective. But the problem for Fnatic was the fact that Kick is TP too far away from the rest of his team, and that's not the ideal scenario for Camille because of how squishy she is. If she dives into this 1v4 scenario, it's very unlikely that she's going to be able to get out, especially with Spraddle and its ultimate. The fact that White Knight's ultimate was used as well just make things very difficult. But what she is great at is taking down these structures, and with Fnatic Academy rotating it from the top side, they wanted to try and siege onto it, but this is the movement that we were talking about from PSG, sending Pilot and Spraddle up to the top lane.
How much does this change the mid-game for Pilot as well? Because we said in picks and bans, you know, Tristana falls off at that 2-item spike, at that mid-portion of the game.
She doesn't fall.
Yeah, but she's not as strong as other
Exactly.
My apologies. So she doesn't have the same power as the Ezreal will at that 2-item spike. By rotating her around the map like this, do you mitigate some of that loss of pure teamfight pressure?
What you take advantage of is her great ability to siege onto towers, right? So by going for the Blade of the Ruin King, with the shift that the changes that it had, so you have a little bit more attack power and a little bit less attack speed. Hang on, we don't have time for that. It's a gank happens.
Kyrie's going to jump in. There's the Netherglass as well, the equalizer, just to make sure they get the kill. White Knight was actually miles away from that fight. It's just like, yeah, I can take this. I'll get this one. Equalizer comes down. It's another kill for PSG, and they've started to rotate around this map a little bit better than Fnatic, a little bit faster than Fnatic.
Easy kill in mid lane. Niski, he didn't even have time for flash. I feel like even if he had used it, PSG would have gone for the dive regardless. They just had so much damage that the ability to escape for Niski would have been very, very low. And now you can see that PSG, they're just playing the siege game. Fnatic very heavily relied on getting Kikis ahead, his ability to be able to draw pressure to his side lane. We saw 3, 4, maybe even 5 ganks up top lane from Amazing, but it was only one that ended up in success, which means that all of the pressure that Pilot was exerting down bottom can now be turned into advantages for PSG because he's constantly knocking on the door of these towers. They've already taken one down bottom. They've already now taken the tower down mid, and with that final one left to fall off in the top lane, they're going to smooth nicely into this mid game that they really need to get to without being at too much of a deficit.
Bit of symmetry between the junglers as Amazing is down towards the bottom side, Kyrie's up towards the top, so Amazing just trying to, if White Knight had stayed under the tower, he could have ganked. He knows the equalizer's down from that mid lane. Kyrie's going to come up towards the top and try and get a tower in response. Fnatic take their second turret of the game, but PSG will be waiting just a couple of seconds before they get their third, and this is very much PSG actually mirroring what we saw from Fnatic last game and taking these towers successively, one by one by one. Fnatic continue to push in though for the tier 2. How will PSG respond?
Well, they know that the Rumble has the equalizer to buy time. PSG have 3 members up in the top half. They could look to either dive Ralas or just use the great power the Pilot has in taking down these turrets to actually get themselves a tower advantage, but keep an eye around the mid lane. Look, Niski and Amazing looking to continue their push.
Blanc's gone down towards bot, Niski and Amazing, as you say, pushing mid, and actually PSG won't get the turret. They get some damage down onto it. Kikis can step forward, Niski and Amazing going to try and get the flank off with Blank. I think PSG might be able to defend this. The shockwave on 2 knocks them back in. Look at the damage onto Kikis. Amazing's dead to the turret. Kikis is dead as well, and Blanc makes the huge play with the shockwave.
That was such a good outplay from Blanc. He realized that the possibility of the dive was coming bot. Whether that was communicated from White Knight or whether it was just something he read on his own, it does not matter. It was the right decision because he was there ready for the dive and he was able to successfully turn it around. 2 kills go in the favor of PSG. It completely alleviates the pressure onto that bottom tower, and now PSG's eyes are set on that tier 2.
Let's have another look at this, because this is just superb reading of the game by Blanc.
You can see that Blanc, he's not even aiming to predict the flash from Kikis. Kikis just wants to flash out of range, but he realizes that, hey, maybe I can keep my jungler alive, but Blanc says, you know what, I will deal with you later. I will focus my attention first onto Amazing, and then once he is dead, you will become my next dish. And he's very quickly able to pick himself up 2 kills, and now look at the gold. PSG are the ones in the lead. They have equalized the gold score. They have an advantage in terms of towers. And you can see they're pinging down onto this tier 2 in the top lane. And because if they can get it, it gives them a lot more control around Baron. And we've already talked about how great their team fighting is. Baron is the best objective to try and force these fights.
Baron take is relatively quick as well. You've got them Voidlings from the Mauserharve. Tristana does a lot of damage to Baron as well with the explosive shot. Orianna and Rumble aren't the best for it, but they've got a lot of zone control with the shockwave, with the equalizer.
And now I wonder, now that you were talking about the speed and the builds, Pilot, I think, might be going towards the Ashe Black Cleaver build.
This is happening.
Yeah, it doesn't actually look like that they are focusing the Baron. It is going very quickly as well. Pilot has now joined the fray.
3,000 HP, they just don't know. Clyde's going to come across and ward it. There's a control ward in there. They'll spot it for the second. Amazing's not going to get there in time, and PSG take the Baron. They pull a Fnatic on Fnatic.
That was a very clean Baron take from PSG. They knew they had full vision control of it. They knew the minion wave was pushed up top. Blanc had been spotted out mid, clearing the wave, but Fnatic Academy, they just assumed he'd backed off. No awareness of that play happening, and with a just post 20-minute Baron, while PSG sure they don't find the fight, but their ability to siege is now going to be all the more stronger.
What they do find is a 3,000 gold lead. They find themselves those 3 turrets up to just 2. And even though Pilot doesn't have as much damage perhaps as the Ezreal at 2 items, he's got there quicker. He's got Runan's Blade of the Ruin King. No Trinity Force completed yet for Mr. Rales. Now he's got Baron-empowered minions as well to help him with what is essentially a 1v1 push in this top lane. Look at how much PSG is playing the map here. This is what we saw Fnatic do in Game 2. And PSG have just turned it on its head. They've read Amazing like a book with those continued top lane ganks, the continued pressure on Kikis, and PSG have said, look, do whatever you want to White Knight. We don't really care that much. We will take everything on the other side of the map.
And this is why we have to backtrack to this Tristana pick. Yes, while often in 2v2 lanes, it can be difficult to run. Shockwave onto Amazing.
Oh, Amazing just gets melted by the shockwave. He's going to get forced to retreat. It's a zoning shockwave as PSG take another tower. Clyde jumps in, though. He's going to try and lick down Blanc. Kaiwe's in the front line to TP in. There's an equalizer ready, and you can see PSG are raring for a fight. They're going to start retreating, though, if they don't want too much here. Kikis is on the flank. White Knight, however, is on a flank of his own. It's top laner v top laner. There's the equalizer flash in. Flame spits Azonius as well, and he gets one. White Knight on a killing spree. Kikis, though, returns to favor with the shot down. PSG 1-for-1 trade as they can continue to push in with these Baron-empowered minions. 2 members of Fnatic Academy are backing. The question is, can they push into the Victor wave clear, even with this advantage?
PSG, they're feeling pretty confident. They still have the Baron empowered minions and a cannon creep. And with Tristana, they're looking to take this tier 3.
Explosive shot does so much work. Clyde taken down, and Pilot takes him out. Sparsul, though, caught out in the gravity well. There's the inhibitor tower going down. Pilot's continuing to push in. So risky with Kikis still on full HP. Almost has the flash. You can see Kaiwe just sitting with his mid laner, understanding if Kikis jumps in, he's the one who needs to knock him up. PSG will back away. They get the inhibitor, and they win the fray.
It is a net game for PSG overall, and you can see that their focus is just taking down this tower. I think the shockwave was a little bit early. If it had landed onto Rales, it would have been stronger, but because it only hits the jungler, it actually gives the go signal for Fnatic to try and force a fight. And they're feeling confident enough that the problem they have is that Kik is coming in from this flank. He doesn't really do anything. He doesn't catch anybody off guard because he's going to be in the same situation that he was in before. Niski has already used his ultimate, and at this point, Fnatic can't really continue the fight. They just have to try and disengage. White Knight take advantage of that, and he just dives into the backline. Again, though, it just seems to be a little bit of uncoordinated uncoordinated play from both sides. As individuals see an opportunity, they take it.
Shockwave onto Cly, and White Knight's going to burn through him with the Flame Spitter. Amazing there off towards the side as well. He's getting taken low, and Cly will die. Amazing actually going to get taken out as well. It's a double as Pilot comes in. Kyra here onto Niski. He's going to continue for the chase. Blunk's died as well, though. And it actually looks like Pilot got a kill in the bot lane while all of that was going on. 2 for 2 trade. 3 for 2 trade.
So this is weird.
It feels very haphazard, very uncoordinated, very chaotic from both
Like,
these
I
teams.
don't understand why Clyde would try and make that move in the mid. We obviously didn't have the full vision because we just come out of a replay. But the fact that Kikis died down in the bottom lane in a 1 versus 2 against Spiral and Pilot is definitely not something that you'd want to happen because it's now freeing up the tower. Spiral actually still has his ultimate available.
Just died, and like I thought it would be a Nether Grasp into kill, but he just died.
We'll have to get a replay. We'll talk more about it when we get the replay. But the play in mid, I still think was a little bit questionable. So here you can see Clyde's just moving into mid lane to try and get a collapse onto Blanc. I don't agree with that decision. I think it was super risky. You don't have the proper follow-up from Niski and Rales, who are too far away. Like, sure, you're able to take advantage of the fact that both the bottom lane of PSG is away from the fight, so maybe you can use a numbers advantage.
This is just him dying.
Oh, he failed his jump over the wall, and I also think the Pilot actually came out from the brush, so he just continued to push without full vision of where Pilot was. So now the play makes more sense because Fnatic, they tried to force a play mid when they saw they had a possible numbers advantage because both Pilot and Spiral were down bottom lane. But I think the execution of it was not ideal because you didn't have proper follow-up, and again, it comes back to this coordination that both teams, I think, are expressing that sometimes the individual sees a possible play, they go for it, and they don't properly convey to their allies what they're trying to do, what they're planning on doing, and that's why you see this sort of mishmash of going in, going out, going in, going out.
We start to see a gold lead extend for PSG, 5,000, 6,000 almost in favor for them. They are 7 towers to 2 up as well as Fnatic. Very much on the back foot here. 3 items completed on Blank, 3 items as well on Pilot, so he's started to step over that lull of damage from the Tristana, now with the Infinity Edge and the Blade of the Ruined King. Mr. Rales miles away from his 3rd item at the moment, sitting only on that Trinity Force and the Mana Mura Mana now.
Kikis is still sitting off to a side lane. He does have his teleport available. A lot of flanking opportunities, but PSG, they don't care. They just want that inhibitor.
This is the problem, though, with Kikis being such a threat by himself and so much of Fnatic's resources being piled onto him. If he doesn't get far enough ahead that PSG have to answer him, they can just force a 5 mid, and they can do exactly what they have done. Yes, they'll lose 2 towers for this, or maybe 1.5, but they get an inhibitor, which is so worth as a trade.
But the problem that you have if you're PSG is how many times can you make that sacrifice? Because sure, this time it was 2 towers, but next time it could be a base tower.
Yep.
Next time it could be an inhibitor. And so, while sure, at this point in the game it's fine to make that trade, PSG have to be aware of the fact that if this continues to happen, not only are you giving a lot more gold over to Fnatic, but you're also running the risk of Kikis just working his way even further into your base.
But do PSG have an answer to Kikis in the 1v1? Can the Tristana late game be able to deal with him? Do you need to put 2 people there? Does Spratle need to be there? Can Blank do it by himself?
Oh, I definitely think Pilot could hold his own against Kikis. I think that'll be fine. He has plenty of disengage tools. As long as he plays around the stun smart, then he should be fine. And if they were actually to go head-to-head in a straight-up 1v1, depending on the fact that Pilot actually has so many more items than Kikis, I would actually give the slight edge over to him, especially with a heal as well. It depends on how much outplay Kikis can get, right? Like
Camille is one of those champions that has so much outplay, though, because if the Buster Shot comes out, the ultimate from the Tristana, and you dodge it with your ultimate, the Hextech Ultimatum, that basically wins the fight for you, because you can just get straight onto that Tristana's face, and she doesn't have the ability to jump away from you. However, if the Buster Shot knocks you out of the Hextech Ultimatum, well, then you're kind of scuppered, because she'll just damage you from long range and continually harass you. Has that Blade of the Ruined King as well, of course, for the movement speed.
But now the Baron is back on the cards, right? Now PSG, they got a sneaky one at about 20 minutes into the game. Their vision control around the Baron itself is very good, but they don't have much vision control of Fnatic's jungle. And that's the bit that they really need to get control of. So you can see Blank has already pushed at mid. They have the inhibitor open as well, so that's naturally going to keep pushing. The top lane has been pushed in favor of PSG as well, and this is the window that they need because Niski has to go deal with that wave clear so PSG can move into the top half of the jungle and gain that vision control that they so desperately want.
I love that Oracle's alteration because as a support, that's like your golden tickets. Pop the Oracles once, spot 5 wards out, say, yes, give me the money, give me all that income. Everyone else takes them, of course, because that's what happens. Oh, Nether Grasp onto Amazing. He can repel if he wants to try and get out of this, but with the Call of the Void, he just cannot get away, and that has to spell a Baron for PSG. No jungler. Kikis getting burned down in the bottom lane as well as White Knight just takes the trade. Gonna put the Flame Spitter down into the Zhonya as Kikis only just surviving. White Knight in that overload. Won't be able to chase just yet. He can with the flash into the Harpoon, and now PSG start the Baron. Niski looking for the steal. Fly off towards the side as well. PSG, True Shot Barrage not gonna take it. They're just waiting here. Do it slowly, they get it. The Shockwave onto Cly might mean that PSG continue this chase. Gravity well down, the redemption as well will keep Cly alive just for the moment, but it's not long enough as Pilot is on a rampage.
Everything goes the way PSG want it. They get a solo kill down in the bottom lane, they get a pick down onto the jungler of Fnatic Academy, they net themselves the Baron, and with the sieging tools that they have in their kit, they're looking to end the game.
Looks like it's just the push to win. 4 members of Fnatic will be up in just 10 seconds time. First Nexus Tower, the target is Pilot will melt through it, of course. With that Tristana, they get 1. They're looking for 2. Gonna go through that with the explosive shot as well. Blank on the front line, taken low. Amazing misses the Cocoon off towards the side. Repels up, and now PSG will have to think about disengages. Kikis is up, and they just cannot get that second Nexus Tower. Once again, 1 Nexus Tower down, and PSG will retreat away.
They also have to be careful of that inhibitor respawning relatively soon as well. So I think the smart thing for PSG is they just take their gold, they go back to base, they spend it, come back with better upgraded items, and they have the choice then. They can either go for the 1/4, they have, I think the primary should be to take down the mid inhibitor that respawns soon, then they set up for the 1/4, and they should be able to just slowly but surely break into the base of Fnatic Academy. And you can see very easy smite steal for PSG. There's always the risk of the Niski steal, especially when combined with his ultimate. So good patience there from Kirei, but it does result in a teamfight win as well. PSG looking like another team. Like we talked about how they love growth, right? They always demonstrated growth, right? They started off rough at the beginning of the split, halfway through, they get that 5-game winning streak. They come into the first game very close with Fnatic Academy. They realize that, hey, we're actually pretty good at teamfight comps because we're good at team fighting. Game 2, they never get that opportunity because of how well Fnatic play the map when they play the early game. And then in Game 3, PSG go, you know what, we're going to shift things up a little bit. We're going to have someone to dual Kikis off in the side lane. And we talked about it. Could White Knight hold his own against Kikis? Well, we demonstrated today that, yes, he certainly can.
Hold his own against 2 members of Fnatic Academy, never mind just the one with Amazing being there so often. Oh, Kikis.
What? Of course, because they're not moving, so Kirei can't see any of them.
Oh, I can now.
Kikis now gets spotted.
Oh, mind games right there. I thought he was just going to engage onto Kirei, but don't do it. It was an intelligent play by Fnatic to try and set something up. Here comes the Abyssal Voyage. Hexacoder makes him down on Kirei as well. White Knight's there, up towards the side. The Redemption used, Exhaust down as well. Kirei's going to jump across the wall. Here's Sparkle Equalizer in a great spot in the jungle as Kikis starts to burn down. Immediately the Devour used by Clyde to get him out, and now PSG can look for the re-engage. Chaos Storm down. Amazing there. Nether Grasp used, but Niski's going to get away from it. Mr. Rales has one. He's looking for more. This is a great fight for Fnatic as he jumps in. Niski puts down the Zhonya's. White Knight's going to get shockwaved up, and there's the kill. Fnatic take down another. There's a response, though, as they lose 1 member. Amazing has died. Pilot was nowhere near this fight.
Exactly what we saw in Game 1 happens again in Game 3. Pilot being off in a side lane, being that split pusher, is one of the main damage dealers of PSG's roster. With him unavailable, Fnatic see a prime opportunity to try and force a fight, and they are able to win it just barely. Even though Blanc was able to throw out a huge amount of damage, he wasn't in the primary position for PSG to be able to win the fight. Given the gold deficit, this is a great situation for Fnatic to at least claw some gold back.
It's just about clawing that gold back, though. They don't get anything out of getting those kills apart from just the pure monetary value of that. Perhaps delay a couple of Baron buffs, of course, but they've fallen off PSG now as well. And we talked about it in picks and bans. PSG have utilized this competition so perfectly. 20-minute mark, they take the Baron. You said PSG needs to force something at 20-minute marks. Is exactly what they did. Now they're getting up into these later portions. They've mitigated that damage lull from the Tristana, who's still actually only sitting on the 3 items with that QSS. And they can just continue to advance this and get that Orianna a little bit bigger, get Pilot a little bit bigger, and then look for the final push. Inhibitor has respawned, though, for Fnatic, and even though they're 6,000 gold behind, they showed us in that last fight. They have a big fighter on Niski, 4-1 and 4, and Mr. Rales is 2-1 and 3 as well on this Ezreal.
If you're on Fnatic Academy, we've seen that if they go for that full 5-on-5, they're going to lose, right? It's evident, level 17 Pilot. The power of late game Tristana has definitely been reached. I would argue. And Ralez, while he certainly is strong, he knew a lot in these team fights. I feel like when you compare him to Tristana at this point in the game, his value is not going to be as strong. Now, what Fnatic need to be able to do is very much what we described earlier on, which is Kikis needs to be able to draw enough pressure off into a side lane. The PSG can't just group up mid and push. They have to lose something if they are grouping up as a 5-man unit. And right now, Fnatic are not doing that. They're actually just going back as a 5-man, and they're going to look to try and fight. Now, this is a big risk, and if PSG get the fight that they want, they could very swiftly just end the game.
Inhibitor down to half, Pilot continuing just to pressure forward. Kyrie forced back now. Fnatic Academy. Kikis is looking for the flank. He was still in base, had that TP up, isn't going to be able to get there quite yet. He's just running towards the inhibitor now to try and defend it. Kyrie's down to half HP. Fnatic Academy yet to take any damage, really, although their inhibitor has. Clyde looking to see perhaps if he can catch someone out. PSG disengage. 1 minute 30 on the Baron now. It's incredibly close, and PSG just get back and try and get some vision control around here. There's a couple of wards that have spotted them out that they haven't seen themselves. I think it's actually going up towards the top lane to try and get a little bit of a push going up there.
So good poke from Ralez actually prevents the continued siege coming up from PSG. The Baron spawning in about a minute's time will likely be the big point of contention for both these lineups. A lot of vision control invested in the river from PSG, but Fnatic, they hold on to control of their half of the jungle. So what we need to see from PSG is very similar to what they did earlier. Push up mid, push up top, gain vision control around the top half of the jungle, and that enables you to then start that objective, whether it be to bait the enemy team into a fight, or to just go for that 50-50 smite risk, which is naturally always a gamble, something that we have seen from many LCS teams do, and we've seen even PSG do, and ends up falling flat on their face.
It's amazing how close and tense this game feels when you look at the gold disadvantage. The PSG are 6,000 gold ahead. They have a 4-item Tristana. They've got a 4-item Orianna. They're incredibly strong, but the game feels incredibly close.
See, I disagree. I don't think it feels close at all. I feel that PSG are actually in full control. They're just playing a calm and calculated style, because they know the longer this game goes on, they will not fall off. They will just get stronger. So PSG have a composition that allows them to buy time, and now they're going to force 5 minutes.
Shockwave on Clyde, there's the kill. Equalizer comes down as well. Pilot unstoppable, and PSG looking for that inhibitor. Kick is still in a separate lane. Looks like Fnatic will give up the inhib to try and get the poke down they can. And then the question is, do PSG continue pushing forward, or do they turn their eyes across towards the big purple worm? That's where they're going.
PSG, they find the pick that they need. Clyde, he still has his flash up, but he ends up getting caught out from Spraddle's ultimate with no QSS. There was very little that he could do to get out of this situation. Bear in mind, though, that the jungler for Fnatic is still up and available. Kikis is continuing his push down bottom, and Fnatic, they only need to stall. This is the risk that we talked about earlier on as Kyrie gets caught out.
Down to half HP. Redemption does come out. We'll heal him up a little bit. Back up to half. And now PSG might look towards that Baron once again. However, Amazing's always there for the steal. We've seen this bite PSG before. Can Amazing sink in his fangs and pull it down on that Baron? Blank down to half. Fnatic going to continue in. TP being used by Kikis. Going to try and get the flank off. Can't quite get it. They stop the Baron, and they do get a tower in that bottom lane. PSG still unable to break the base.
This is fine for PSG because they know they've taken a lot of damage. Going for that fight would be risky, but what they've done is take the teleport away from Kikis. Now, this means that if Kikis goes off to a side lane, PSG is so much more confident in being able to force the fight that they know they will have the numbers advantage. Look, Elder Dragon is available. Baron now being started by Fnatic.
Forced decision for them.
They're going to get
it. The rest of PSG are just not around, and Fnatic make a great shot call to take the Baron and continue this game. PSG are going to turn their eyes straight across towards the Drake, but they don't have any other Drakes. It's a single Elder, gives you a buff for about a minute and a half. It's not the end of the world for Fnatic Academy.
It will certainly increase their team fighting power, but Fnatic, they have a very clear win condition right now. Look, they're not even going back to base. They're going to continue pushing, utilizing this Baron buff. They know that PSG don't get those empowered recalls. This is just going to make the map so much more difficult for PSG to deal with now, because they have to clear out bot, they have to clear out top, they have to deal with a Kikis, who's now level 18, a GA on top of his QSS, and has a Baron buff to make things even worse.
We talked about it in picks and bans. Well, I said I felt that PSG had a timer, that if they got to the uber late game against the Camille, against the Victor, against an Ezreal, they would struggle. Are we getting towards that point, or is the Orianna-Tristana combo still too powerful for Fnatic just to face up against 5v5?
I definitely think that Fnatic Academy should avoid at all costs trying to fight 5v5. I think they have a much better split push comp. I think that they can play the bat much better than PSG can. And if they just find a pick and they just split PSG up, it's exactly the way in which they want to win, especially when they have a Baron available. The big thing they have to be careful of is, again, Kikis, no teleport. PSG, they have the Elder Drake. If they just run it down mid, they will win a fight. And Fnatic just have to do what they can to avoid doing it.
Well, we're working our way towards full items once again. All of these games have been relatively long. Second game, 34 minutes or so. First game, over 50. This game looks like it's heading towards that direction as well. The gold lead has shrunk as Fnatic Academy claw back some of that gold that we were talking about. With that Baron, they've got it down to about 4,000. And you have to wonder how much this is playing on the minds of PSG. They came into Challenger Series as an incredibly hyped team. The first game, they looked relatively clean, although perhaps took them a little bit longer to close it out than they thought. And then this game, they got up to 8,000 gold ahead at one point. And since then, they just haven't been able to close. They haven't been able to put that final nail in the coffin of Fnatic.
I think PSG are fine. I think mentally, they're pretty good.
Which we have very differing attitudes towards PSG's mental state.
I think that, again, they have a lot of experienced players. I think that compositionally, they're fine in the late game. They just need to take it patiently. They can't succumb to the pressure of Kikis. And look, they're grouping at 5 mid. They know Kikis hasn't reached the bottom lane yet. They realize the inhibitor is respawning soon. They'll probably have to send White Knight back to base to deal with the push. The inhibitor's not back yet. Are they just going to go for the base?
The problem with this is Kikis does have a Baron-empowered recall, so only taking about 4 seconds to get back to base. They're going to jump in. Nethergrass wants to Clyde. There's the equalizer as well. Clyde is dead. Pilot is dominating. However, Sputtle's dead and White Knight's low. He gets taken out, and here's Kikis. He's getting onto that Tristana. Tries to get the kill. Pilot trying to do what he can. It's just not enough. Fnatic Academy turn it around. They defend the base. They take the ace. Fnatic Academy hold on to the game.
PSG invest all of their resources into just killing Kai. Yes, you get the kill, but Niski's still alive. Rales is still alive. White Knight, he ends up dropping right at the start of the fight, and with all of this heal gone, it makes it so easy for Fnatic Academy to dive onto Pilot, and with him dead, that's it. No more wave clear. Those are long death times. Fnatic Academy, they still have the Baron, and they're looking to try and end this game.
It's quite possibly the end. I mean, Sputtle will be up, have the Nethergrasp in about 20 seconds, but now Fnatic Academy can just go for this inhibitor at least. Might even be more than that. 4 members pushing in. Fnatic trying to close out the game. Here's Russell. What can he do? Can he be the savior that PSG need? Kikis tanking it up. This is going to be 1 Nexus tower down. They're looking for 2, and there's just nothing a Malzahar can do in this situation. It's going to be 2 and 1, and it's going to be Fnatic.
This was PSG's game. They were in the prime position to be able to close things out, and they just tried to force something right at the last minute. They go for that dive. They try to go for that play. It ends up backfiring horribly, and Fnatic, with a great team fight, just run it straight through the bottom lane and very swiftly are able to end the game.
It's something we've seen from PSG before, perhaps not as coordinated as that, but getting caught out late, making bad shot calls late, has cost them dearly across the Challenger split, and it felt very much like that was a play that they just said, well, you know, we could just go for it, we could just try, instead of thinking it out, being methodical and saying, will this actually work?
I mean, the loss of Baron for them really made it hard, and I think the best case scenario for PSG would have been to just delay until the next Baron respawns. I mean, Fnatic had a really good understanding of not only forcing them away from the Baron, making sure that a lot of ultimates were burned, and then making that map movement back to take the Baron for themselves. Yeah. Was just really good at playmaking and decision-making, which did result in them getting the Baron, allowing them to buy time, which is exactly what they needed, because then it resulted in PSG going for this gamble move. And I don't see why you'd go for Cly in that situation, right? Sure, he is one of the big peelers, but all of your damage is coming out onto Pilot. And you should play around the fight, keeping Pilot alive for as long as you possibly can. And I think that was the mistake there from PSG, which is pretty heartbreaking if you are on the PSG lineup. They came so close, yet now they are at a deficit in this series. And they now have to win 2 more games to be able to make it into the promotion tournament.
Well, you can see the joy on the Fnatic face. There's almost disbelief on Niski's face as he was sitting there shaking his head at the end, just being like, how did we win that? How did that happen? But I do, as much as, like we talked about it a little bit in the game, mental fortitude really comes into it now. Can PSG come back from that loss? Can they be able to actually overcome what is a very emotionally draining game, being that far ahead, not being able to close that out and then losing? Or will the adrenaline rush that Fnatic get from that actually carry them over the finish line?
Well, we'll have to wait and see as we're going to jump to a quick break.
Yeah, Fnatic Academy take a 2-1 lead here in the last series of the EU Challenger Series playoff. We'll find out if we get a Game 5 after this short break.
Are you ready for game number 3?
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
This is game 2, I thought.
Ooh, Kyrie. That's not where you want to be. He's going to have to try and flash this wall, but Clyde's on the other side. Exhaust has been used, and Kyrie is first blood.
Abi. Ah, goodbye,
Nice.
bro.
Nice.
Good job.
Blank might be caught out as Clyde tries to get in with a tongue lash. There's a shockwave on the back, and here comes the damage out. Kyrie in the front line is going to get taken low. The TP coming in as well. It's White Knight. He's there, but he doesn't want to be there. Kick is taken off down towards the side, and now it's a 4v4.
Look.
Can kill. Nice.
Nice. Really
Flash in, Flame spits as Onions as well, and he gets one. White Knight on a killing spree. Kickis though returns to favor with the shot down.
Kill this guy.
Okay, yeah. Nice. Tower. Careful.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Flash in, Flame spits as Onions as well, and he gets one. White Knight on a killing spree. Kickis though returns to favor with the shot down.
Kill this guy.
Okay, yeah. Nice. Tower. Careful.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Back. You should
Tower back. Yes, back.
They're just waiting here. Can do it slowly. They get it. The shockwave onto Cly might mean that PSG continue this chase. Gravity well down. The redemption as well will keep Cly alive just for the moment, but it's not long enough. Taken out, and here's Kickis. He's getting onto that Tristana. Tries to get the kill. Pilot trying to do what he can. It's just not enough. Fnatic Academy turn it around. They defend the base. They take the ace. Fnatic Academy hold on to the game.